Once you intersect it with this box here and it turns green, you can let go. And now we can see the unit of measurement for that mannequin. We can see a preview for the mannequin in the space. And you have a couple of options here where you can kind of like rotate, shift them around, and just move them around the space. If you happen to be super zoomed out or super zoomed in and you can't see where that preview is, all you need to do is click Locate Preview here. And it's going to place that preview right in front of you so that you can see where that is. Then you can press the blue check mark here, and that's going to officially import this mannequin into the space. So now this is like a 3D object that I can take, I can duplicate, I can change the color or material of, and most importantly, can adjust the mannequin. So this imported mannequin here, both the male and female percentile are rigged. So if you grab them, hold them, and press the blue menu button, which is the button that you use to place anything into edit mode while you're holding it, you'll notice that she's still in the same position, still in the same placement, but there are these green dots at key points along the body. And those green dots, if you reach out and grab them, are pivot points. And the green dots are very gestural. So if you grab, let's say that wrist point right there, it's going to adjust everything back from the wrist to the shoulder. So we can shift this around and change the position of the arm and very intuitively and gesturally change the position. And then if you flick the joystick on your right-hand controller, left or right, you can kind of just cycle through them. There are these green points, which we just used, and then these blue points. And the blue points are much more precise. There's a lot more of them, and they're positioned at every pivot point of the human form. And so if I grab this elbow one, it's just going to move the elbow and then everything in front of it. And then I can just keep going down the line like this and adjust every pivot point down to the knuckles. So that's really useful because you could be designing something as large as like a bike station or even a mobility station, or you can zoom in really close here and start validating small products like the handle on a bicycle or the handle on a leaf blower or a computer mouse or anything at a smaller scale. So the mannequin's really useful. Definitely suggest you guys giving that a shot, using that to validate things. But what I'm going to do is just place the arms down here in kind of like a regular standing position and just show you how you can very quickly validate something. So we have our mannequin in the space, that's contextual scale. Now let's start like roughly coming up with a concept here. So one thing that we could do is establish where the floor is going to be. In Gravity Sketch, you don't have to put a floor down. You just go to Settings, Sketching Aid, and then turn on Stage Floor. You can choose between rounded or squared. I usually like to go for the rounded option here. And the nice thing about the stage floor is right now it's sort of just fitting the mannequin on it. But as you start to sketch and create things in the space, this automatically adjusts to encompass the surrounding geometry. Okay, cool. So we have the mannequin in the space, and let's say we just want to make like a bike station. Well, first off, you don't have to actually build a bike. You can bring in a bike as a prefab. So you can go on TurboSquid or anywhere where you can get 3D data on the internet or even from another program that you exported and bring that into Gravity Sketch. The only thing you need to do is go to prefabs, and instead of going to built-in models, you can go to import models. So built-in models is obviously whatever Gravity Sketch gives you. Import models is anything that you bring into Gravity Sketch. So we can kind of click through here and look at different 3D models that we brought in here. I think I have a bicycle here, but if not, we can just use something else. Let's see, there's a couple of previous saved sketches. That looks like a bicycle. Okay. Looks like I only have a bicycle sketch here, but that's okay. We're going to use that. So I can import this bike at 1:1 scale. And because it's a prefab, I can use this to start telling my story here. So just with this bicycle sketch right here, I can take that and start duplicating this out. And it's pretty low fidelity. It's just a sketch, but already here we're understanding proportion and scale and placement of these items. And I can even start creating a new layer here and sketching what this bicycle station might look like here. Now, again, I'm just going to be using a sketch here. So like it's obviously not going to be that high fidelity, but it gives me an idea of what this station will look like. So this is just, again, with sketch lines here, we can lay that out. Maybe we take this line over here and draw this up and we make a screen here where you can actually like sign in and get a bike. And by the way, if none of you guys have used Gravity Sketch before, to start leveraging these sketching functions, it's as easy as just jumping into the program, pressing the index finger here and start moving your arm around like this. And you can start making this gestural line. If you wanted to make something symmetrical, you could come in here to settings and turn on the mirror tool. And now everything you sketch is going to be symmetrically done on the other side of the mirror plane here. We can duplicate out our mannequin here and just very quickly validate like the height of this screen here. So we can grab the mannequin, place her into edit mode, reach the arm out like this. If you want to, you could get a little bit more in depth here and start to bend back some of the fingers here and kind of like show the motion that the user might be going through to select an option here. And we can see that this is like a relatively low screen. We actually might want to drag some of this stuff up, make it a little bit taller here. Maybe we have on the sides here a place where we can have like a waste bin or a trash can or something like that. Oh, by the way, it's kind of impossible for me to turn this whole environment upside down right now because I have vertical lock on. And basically what that means is that the y-axis or the up axis here is always going to be locked facing up. But if you did want to change that up, you could turn off vertical lock here, and now you can tumble this environment around in every degree. And sometimes that makes it a little bit easier to like turn the world upside down and kind of do some sketching from a different angle. Okay, so maybe that's where our waste bin would go. Like this. All right, maybe somebody's taking out one of the bikes. By the way, this is this demo is like super interactive. So if you guys have any questions on the platform, workflow, the program, anything, just shout it out and I'm happy to demo those things.
Emil, something that I can think about that hasn't come up, but I'm sure it will, is baking mirrored objects, especially when you want to place them around a space. With the bike, for example, it was a mirrored object and then you baked it. Can you show us how you would go about doing that if you create something on the plane?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's say that you didn't want to, or off of this idea, we started thinking, you know what, maybe bicycles aren't the right idea. We want to do something a little more like a scooter. And so we start designing a scooter, and we're using the mirror tool here. So obviously, like Alejandro was saying, when you're sketching, all of it's mirrored on either side of the plane. And then whenever you go to grab it and move it, it moves in the opposite direction. And that's because you know, it's still being mirrored. It's just a representation of this geometry on the other side of the mirror plane, so it's moving equally on the other side. So if you make a shape like this, or any shape, and then you want to take that and move it as a single object, what you'll need to do is kind of break the relationship between the mirror, and we call this baking mirror. So you'll have to grab that object, hold it, press the blue menu button, and click this option here, Bake Mirror. And as soon as you do that, now these actually are two separate objects. And if you wanted to group them together, then you can grab them both like this, hold them, and press the purple button. And then that will now highlight these objects purple and have them grouped together. So you can imagine if you had, and we can kind of like sketch out like a quick scooter here. Okay, let's just say that's the wheel. And that's the base. And then we have the handlebars pulling up here. Okay, so there's our scooter. Obviously, these are multiple objects, and you can grab them together. So you would grab them like this, long hold the blue menu button, bake the mirror, and then grab that again and press the purple button. And now this is a single object that you can take and move around the space. So the useful thing about that is you can go from designing a product to then baking it, taking this thing, and then start laying it out in like a user scenario. So maybe this is the station where they all lock up and can be recharged and accessed by the public. Okay, cool. On that theme, I'm actually going to share some other projects here that are already done, just to show you how far you can get and how quickly you can iterate. So I'm going to exit this sketch here, and you won't be able to see my screen for a little bit, and I'll just be searching for a file, so it'll only take a minute.
Just as what I've said in the chat, feel free to drop any questions or comments along the chat, or like just shout to the microphone and we will like demonstrate really quickly for you all.
Yeah, that's a great shout. Thanks, Charmaine. Yeah, everybody, please, like, if you have a question, don't hold it back. Just ask it. It's really quick to demo things.
Emil,
Okay,
this
so
looks
this
really, really cool. I think it's perfect. What you're showing us is really great.
cool. Yeah, I'm glad it's helpful. So this is like a demo we did for a team that does like experiential architecture, or what do you call it, environmental architecture. And so what's really nice here is, these are all just regular tools in Gravity Sketch. So this is right here, this like facade above the walkway here. This is just the stroke tool. And so you can take like simple tools in Gravity Sketch and place them into edit mode and make a bunch of changes to them. So you can kind of see I can change the thickness of this board or the thinness of it. I can make a change like this, grab it and duplicate it out into an array like that. I can place all of these into edit mode at the same time and use soft select to like change the shape of this and give it a very organic feel. But all of that was done just with the stroke tool here. And by default, the stroke tool is, well, that's not default, I changed something. By default, the stroke tool is really loose and intuitive, and it's just a line in the space that you're drawing with. And the only difference between this tool and the ink tool is that it has even consistency on the line. But again, with Gravity Sketch, like even a single loose sketch line that you made has the potential to be a fully blown model. So we could take this individual sketch line like this, place it into edit mode, and it's got all of these edit points, probably too many edit points for its own good. We can simplify them by clicking the simplify button and get all the way to a straight line like this, or we could grab individual edit points and delete them. If you wanted to, you could scale some of these edit points up and down just by holding them and going left and right on the joystick. Again, we can like reduce them like this. We can kind of connect them across the mirror plane like this. And then if you wanted to, you could take this and actually make a more detailed 3D model here. So for instance, like let's say we want to take this sketch line and turn it into handlebars for a bicycle. We can kind of like bend some of these points down like this, change the shape type on them just a little bit, and then convert this to a subdivision object. So we're going to go from a simple sketch line that we would use to sketch out a concept, and then convert it into 3D data that's really really useful and usable. So now you can see this is a sub-D object. We can connect it across the mirror plane. We can move these points around to get a little more shape on the handlebars. So maybe I'll pull these 2 points down here and kind of like have where your hand would be resting a little bit thicker. Same thing up here. We'll make that a little more oval. Can delete away entire rows here. Pretty ugly pair of handlebars.
Emil, we have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Theo said, is there any way to set the environment to 1-to-1 and walk around it, or do you always have to move around the environment or move the environment around you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what you can do here is, yeah, exactly. You're designing in different scales all the time, and then you might be able to zoom in and kind of view this at 1-to-1 scale, but you're still doing this like navigation, creation navigation thing the entire time. If you want to experience what this space looks like at 1-to-1 and be able to walk around it, it's a little bit of a clunky feature, but it is super useful. The first thing that I would do is just lock all your layers. And the reason and create a spare one here. The reason I'm saying this is we don't want to accidentally move things around while we're trying to like navigate ourselves through the space. Okay, so with that said, everything's locked. The next thing I would do is press the blue menu button here, go to settings, and then we're going to switch over from Sketching Aid, which is probably the most popular folder that you'll be using, over to preferences. When you go to preferences, there's this option here called Scale Snap. And so basically what that allows you to do is view this movement and rotation and scaling in different ways. So I turned on percentage. Now with percentage, every time I scale, you can kind of see what percent I'm at with the numbers in between my hands here. So that's kind of useful because we can lock ourselves at 100% here. And now I know that I'm at 1-to-1 scale. Or if you wanted to, you could change this over to ratio. And ratio is a little more chunky here. It's just going to snap to 1-to-1 like that. So that's really useful too. And then to actually navigate yourself through the space where you're like teleporting or walking, you'll have to use a feature called Tool Belt. So the way that we enable Tool Belt is by going to the same place, settings, and then shifting over to this beta feature here, beta tab here, where you can turn on different beta features. So here is the Tool Belt. All we want to do is take this from disabled and enable it. And then to actually access the Tool Belt, you hold the middle finger on your drawing hand and swipe across your body like this. And that's how you put on and take off the Tool Belt. Again, this feature is a little clunky. We're working on changing it, but this is how you access it now. And this, I forget the joke in the dev team of why they did this, but the teleportation tool is the banana here. So if you reach out and grab this banana and you're holding it, you can kind of see that it projects footsteps on the floor and it shows your headset above those footsteps. So that's you at 1-to-1 scale. If you take the joystick and you rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise, you can kind of see that you're changing the position of that headset and feet projected on the floor. Now, let's say I project this over here, and then I press the index finger on the right hand. It will zoom me to that location and keep me at this scale. So this is kind of a way that you can go around and validate. By the way, I'm sitting down right now, so that's why the height looks a little bit weird. But this is how you can kind of validate a space. And as long as you don't change your scale, you'll remain at 1-to-1 scale. But yeah, that was a great question. Thanks for shouting that out. So on ideation, I'm going to lay out, or I'm going to pull up a different scene that kind of shows how quickly you can ideate in Gravity Sketch. One other thing I wanted to say here is, everything here was built in Gravity Sketch with the exception of the plant life here. That's another thing it's really useful to just go to like TurboSquid or anywhere where you can buy or download free digital models and bring those into Gravity Sketch. And it just helps bring the realism up a bit. And what's nice is you can take a scene like this, lay it out, and then export this entire scene into Keyshot or Blender or any program that you want, and then just start applying materials and render a full out scene, but do all the placement here in Gravity Sketch and even some of the design work if you feel really comfortable in the program. Okay, so let's exit this sketch here and we'll focus on ideation of an actual product. Okay, this is a pretty good example. So this is kind of a form of mobility, but it shows you the evolution from a really low fidelity sketch all the way up to something that you can again export and get a really amazing render from in Keyshot or your rendering program of your choice. So I think I have a couple of layers here. Hopefully I have a higher fidelity model. Yeah, I do. Okay. All right, there we go. So let's lock all of this. I'll turn on the high fidelity model and we can shift that out here. Okay. So this is kind of like the in progress model that I was working on. Oh, okay, there's the other piece. Okay, so this is kind of the in-progress model. It's fairly detailed, and you would be able to get some really nice renders from this. And you can see that I'm just focusing on details now, like the suspension for the chair and battery placement and things like that. But all of that was kind of ideated in this line here that I have drawn out. And what's really nice is you can drop in your mannequin, make a couple of sketch lines, and then position your mannequin, and then focus on different problems that are happening with the design. And also, mark these things up and talk about ideation. So like, for instance, here I have this bar coming down here. It's very structural, but I need to work in an armrest here somewhere for this occupant, or it's just not going to be a comfortable chair. But how do I work in the armrest and also make it so that he can reach the wheel in case he manually needs to spin the wheel? Is that at a comfortable height? Like, can you actually fully spin this wheel and not overextend your arm and get a full rotation? Right now, it doesn't look like that. So that would mean that I need to increase the diameter on the wheel here a little bit. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to show here is that with a simple sketch, what you can do is ideate on it just by duplicating it down the line and then start making your changes. So now I know that I want to carry this into a footrest here with the occupant.
Emil, we have another question.
Yeah.
Is there any like good advice of preventing the files from getting too big if we're like creating a whole environment, like in a collab room or like in a personal space?
Yeah, the best thing you could do is find, if you have like a powerful laptop or a powerful desktop, buying the Oculus Link cable and connecting your headset to your computer. And what that's going to do is allow you to build much larger objects. It's going to show you shadows, which is really useful for whenever you're designing these environments. And then it's just going to give you a lot more functionality and room to build things. If you can't do that on your own computer, there might be one at school that you can plug into and then leverage that graphics card there. If none of that is an option, it does really help to build scenes in different stages. And so what I'll do is, like, let's say I design, the ground, and I design a walkway here, and then I lay in some greenery and plant life. This plant life that I imported from another program is pretty heavy. So I'll put that on its own layer and I'll turn it invisible. Unless I really need to see it, then I'll turn it visible, but it's not necessary to see the whole time while you're designing. So I guess that's kind of the biggest piece of advice that I can give, is just sorting things onto different layers so that you're not looking at all of it while you're doing it. Another thing you could do is shaders also make things very heavy. So right now, this toon shader here, and that's just the material that this mannequin is shaded in, is pretty heavy. Toon is a pretty heavy shader. Obviously, reflective is a really heavy shader, but this flat material here isn't that, it doesn't take that much for the program to render. So if you have something that you need in the space, but it's not really essential that it's shaded correctly, this flat material shader will help cut down on some of the rendering costs and make it a little more comfortable in your headset. I really do want to say, though, that with this mobility project, because you might be working on a certain aspect of a larger project with other teammates, it would be very helpful to find a computer on campus that you can hook up into and not have to worry about bogging down your headset. Cool. Just going to take a look at the notes here for anything else that we might want to cover. Alejandro, also feel free to shout out if there's something that you want the students demoed.
Emil, we have another question from Morgan. When using primitive shapes, how do you control the orientation they come in at, such as a cube perpendicular to the mirror plane? Yeah,
great question. This is very helpful for once you start getting into a little more detailed modeling. So let's say that we wanted to sort of like build out, I don't know, some design on this chair here, and we wanted to do that by using a primitive object. So if you click on the primitive object tab here twice, you get this menu, and you can choose the different primitive objects that you want to use. Quick disclaimer here: if your plan is to take that primitive object and then convert it into a sub-D piece of geometry and build a more complex model, I suggest you clicking subdivision object first. What this is going to do is gray out all the objects that cannot be turned into a sub-D object. So that will just save you some time and some headache. if you're using the right shapes from the very beginning. But for this, we're just going to use a cube. And by default, your menu will look like this. You'll have a cube selected, and then you'll have this 2 hands option selected. All 2 hands means is that whenever you place an object in the space, your 2 hands are going to determine the orientation and placement of this. It's not very intuitive, and a much better way of dropping in shapes is by selecting this option here, central line. If you select central line like this, you'll notice that if you press the index finger on your left hand or your non-drawing hand controller, and you hold in that index finger, you end up holding an axis. This axis is where that object will be placed along. So now if I press the index finger here and I drop in my shape, you can see that, let's turn this onto a better shader for us to see, that it's placed along the axis here. Now let's say you want to drop this in very precisely into the space. Well, what you can do is lock this axis to X, Y, and Z by lightly pressing the index finger trigger and rotating your hand so that it's parallel with the axes that you want to snap to. So what I mean by that is if I want to snap to the Y axis, I'm going to half hold the trigger and rotate my controller so that the face of it is parallel with the Y axis. And you can kind of see that there's some visual feedback here when you do that correctly. That axis will highlight in the color of the axis that you're trying to lock to. And then you can drop in your object in the space like this. There is one little kind of disclaimer here. Let's say you place that axis on an angle like this. When you drop in that shape, it will be dropped in at a 45-degree angle. So if you want to fix this, you just rotate yourself like this or like this, so that again, you're parallel to that axis. Drop it again, and then drop your shape in very precisely like this. And now with this, we can convert it to a sub-D object and start building out our chair here.
Alejandro has a really good question for you too when you're done with the chair. Alejandro wants to know, what is the best strategy to export a model to a collab room?
Okay, best strategy to export a model into a collab room. So there's 2 ways that you can do this. One way is you can save either this individual object or this entire scope of objects here as a prefab. So if nobody saved a prefab before, basically what that means is you've saved this object and you can bring it out into another collab room, or you could bring it into another sketch or anywhere. You can just keep reusing it as a pre-made object, a prefab object. So let's do that just with like this seat here and this one sketch over here. So what you would do is go to prefabs here, select import models, and choose where you want to store this prefab. So it could be on your cloud workspace here, or it could be on local sketches, or it could be just in the main folder right here in the import folder. I'm going to store this on my cloud folder here. And what I would do then is press up on the joystick and grab everything that I want to save as a prefab. Take this, and you'll see as soon as you're holding an object, so I'll let go of that, and then I'll grab this again. As soon as you're holding an object, you'll have these 2 boxes here, and this one says drop here to turn into prefab. So we would take our controller, intersect it with that box until it turns green, let go, and then automatically you'll have a keyboard that pops up, and you can name this whatever you want. Press the blue check mark. It's going to show you where that file is stored and show you that that's completed with the loading bar. Okay, so now that we have that, we can either go to a collab room or we can go to a new sketch. I'll just start a new sketch here, and we can bring that file in. So again, you would just go to prefabs. You would go to whatever folder you saved it at, and then you can click through here and find that file. Now, in order to get that file, you click it first and that loads it. And then you can either reach out, grab and pull it into the space, but of course it's going to be at a random scale and random position, or you can point, click, and properly load that in the same position it was at when you saved it into this space. So now I'll just press the blue check mark, and you can kind of see the distance from the origin here to where that file was saved. It's actually in the same position, same scale, same rotation and orientation as it was when we saved it as a prefab. And so you can continue working on this. And that's really useful because you can bring your own projects into a space with other people in a collab room and start, say, hey, here's my homework. Let's like combine these two projects together now. Yeah, the other way that you can do that is just by taking an entire sketch that you've saved and turn that into a collab room. So I'm going to show you how to do that now here too. So let's save this room. I'm just going to save this as collab. So there we go, save the sketch, and now I can exit to the lobby. Okay, good, you guys can see that. All right, so then I'm going to go to File Manager. That's where all my saved sketches are going to be. And down here on this bar, you can sort through different objects or options. So I'm going to turn off everything except for sketches. That's the only thing I really want to have access to right now. And I can see that there is the file that I just saved. So this is an individual. This is like a single player room right now. Only I have access to that. But what I can do is now press this purple button here. And this purple button is the clipboard. And you can kind of see some 1, 2, 3 instructions here. Basically, this is just telling you, you have this clipboard, you can place things on the clipboard and move them into different parts of the application. So once I have the clipboard out, again, that's the purple button. I just reach out, grab my sketch, and drop it in the clipboard here. And then I can press the red back button to go back to the main lobby, go to the landing pad collab room right here, grab the sketch and place it here as a collab room. And this is my own personal account, so I can only have one collab room, so it won't let me do this. But actually, let's go to the DAP organization. And right here, Charmaine Demo. All right, so then you could grab the sketch and move it here and turn it into a collab room, and then other people could join it. So yeah, those are the two ways that you can take something and bring it into a collab space. Actually, Charmaine, do you have a headset available right now that maybe we could hop into collab with?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna grab that sketch.
Yep.
And we'll actually make that a collab room.
Cool. But before that, we have a question. It's like, can you scale an object along an axis or uniformly without moving the object from its position?
Yeah. That's a great question. Let's create this collab room, and then we can jump in together, and I can show that in the collab space here. So let's do. Let's use the student ambassador org here. Collab room. Drag this over. Cool. All right, so now this is the collab room that Charmaine will be able to join whenever she has her headset. And if you want to scale an object, it's another great question, and also a question that relates to the tool belt. So here's kind of the perfect example. This seat back here is just one object. It's one sub-D object, and this chair right here is made up of a bunch of different objects. And you can kind of see that if I drag my hand through here, each individual piece is going to highlight on its own. And so I'm going to show you how you can scale both of these types of objects here. So here's Charmaine. And I will turn off my microphone. So to scale properly, you'll want to access the tool belt and grab this tool right here. This is the precision tool. It's also being worked on right now. It's not the most intuitive, but the functionality of this tool, if you take the time to learn it, is really, really useful, and honestly pretty necessary. So once you hold this tool, the way that you select objects is just by pointing on them and then pressing the index finger whenever you want to select it. So right now I'm just pointing at this, and you can kind of see I'm getting this this like jig here showing movement. And once I click, let's say right here with the index finger, I've now officially selected this object, and you can see that because the arrows are stationary in the space. Now what I can do is I can select this blue arrow, this green arrow, or the red arrow, hold my index finger down, and drag this object along. I can drag by this plane here. And then if I take the joystick on my right-hand controller and flick this left and right, I can cycle between movement, rotation, and scale here. Now, I accidentally did this before, but we had this selected here. So this is like the anchor point. And if we were to scale, it would scale from the anchor point. Now, that's not really useful because we're designing stuff on the mirror plane, and we want to keep everything on the mirror plane. So if you grab this, select the object, and then want to place this in the calculated center of this object, you would just hold this in open space, click the index finger one more time, and then it will calculate the center of this object so that you can successfully scale this on the axes and leave it connected to the mirror plane. So actually, let's scale this for this chair here. Let's say this is the new seat back that we want to move. Okay, that's good. And now we can take this, place it in edit mode, and make this like the backing for those cushions. Cool. So as I mentioned before, this is a bunch of different objects. And if we wanted to do the same thing, we couldn't until we grouped this. So we would have to grab everything, again, hold it, purple button. Now this is all grouped as one object, and we can kind of treat it that way so that whenever we move this or scale this, they scale together. One other thing that I wanted to mention on that tool here, say make a line just like this. Let's say we're on the rotation tool here, and we're rotating, and it's telling us, you know, the exact degree that it's being rotated. But what if we want to rotate in increments of 5? You would just do the same exact thing, but before rotating it, there's this button here, the snap button. If you click the snap button, now you can rotate in increments of 5. Yeah, definitely give the tool belt a try and try and get comfortable with it. It makes building more complex things in Gravity Sketch possible, but also way easier. It does take a little bit of time to get used to that. All right. Any other questions?
Emil in the chat, student asks for some of the other tools in the tool belt. I know that there's the randomizer and some of the other ones. So how can you use those usually? Yeah, so let's just go down the line actually here with the tool belt. Like, to be totally frank, I don't think a lot of these are all that useful, but you have well, actually we'll start with this one here. So you have the color picker. If you just hold this out, point it at any object in the space, it's going to sample the color and the material of that object. And once you press the index finger, it officially changes that over so that, you know, that's the material that you're working with. So let's say we selected this blue here. Now we have that exact material selected. And what if we wanted to paint everything the same color and material? Well, you can grab the paintbrush here, hold down the index finger, and just sort of drag this along everything, and it will paint and change everything to that material. The banana we kind of covered before. This is how you can like
navigate around the space in a teleportation kind of way. Supposed to be like walking. This die here is the randomizer. So this is actually something that we did, I believe, for concept artists, so that they could quickly generate ideas. So let's say you're making like speed forms or something like that. You could use this randomizer and just kind of shifts everything around and makes it random. I don't think I've ever used this, but I guess some people do. Let's go back. Okay. Precision tool we just covered, and then this last tool here is for changing the normals of an object. So let's say I make a paper thin surface like this. If I choose to export this where it's not double-sided, it just has one side, one normal, I can change the normal with this tool. Basically, it's representing the negative side in black, and then the normal side in your whatever color or material you have, and you just point and click on the surface and it changes the normal side. So that could be useful if you have to, like, let's say export something for a video game. So everything needs to be super lightweight. You can't do a double-sided surface. Then you would just change the sides of the normal with this tool here before exporting, to help keep it light. Cool. All right, let's see if there's anything else in the notes here that I can kind of cover for you guys.
Emil, can you try to show off how quickly you can iterate, like maybe like from one design to like 20 design? Like how is it possible? How easy is it in Gravity Sketch?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sorry, it's just picking up tracking again. Okay, so let's say like we're trying to think of like an object that we can kind of sketch here. So it's mobility, right? Okay, we could do, yeah, like a small, okay, all right, here we go. So let's say we wanted to design something that's like kind of in between a scooter and like a little go-kart. It's going to be electrically powered and or have an electric powertrain. So what we're going to do here is just kind of like position this mannequin in a way that they might be driving this object. We want it to be comfortable for all demographics, so elderly, younger people, and maybe even somebody that has like some sort of a disability, or like they're they need to be like in an upright position. This can't be like a sports car, basically. So let's make this upright. It's going to be upright like a truck here, and let's start placing some wheels here in the space. So you can either place wheels just by there's a lot of ways. You could just do a loose sketch like this, and that's like a super low fidelity way, but it's super quick. You don't need to learn a bunch of tools. You can also press the blue menu button here and choose the rig chassis. And the rig chassis is, I mean, this is just an awesome feature that we developed in partnership with Ford. You can either type in your exact dimensions and change the dimensions of this chassis, or you can just grab these little pull arrows right here and very quickly adjust things like the wheelbase or the wheel track, or anything. So what we'll do here is like, let's make a nice small platform here for somebody to for this like micro mobility solution. And then once you're done with this, you can press the blue menu button and kind of lock in the position of this wheelbase here. So let's shift this guy forward here a little bit and start sketching like a loose concept here. So I know we want the powertrain to be here. So I'm just going to draw like a little hub here where the batteries would be going. And obviously that goes up to the wheels here. And so we'll kind of sketch that out a little bit there. And there's probably not going to be a battery in the front, so we're just going to leave that empty for right now. We'll give this a nice flat floor. So I'm just going to bring this up here, and we're going to curve this up here so that we kind of have this like foot stop right here. So we have the pedals here as well. Again, this is all low fidelity. We're just trying to get an idea as quickly as possible. And let's bring a frame in here. So we could do something simple like a tube frame, or we can go a little more advanced. I think let's just keep it very simple for right now. By the way, if you wanted to sketch like, let's say a proper side view, then you could turn on this planer tool here, and that will allow you to sketch perfectly on a plane. And again, like I was saying before, I have vertical lock on right now. This is really uncomfortable. It's like sketching on a, standing up on a wall or on a marker board. So if you wanted to make this a little more natural, then you could turn off vertical lock, and now you can kind of change the rotation here so that it's like at an angle like a piece of paper or a Wacom tablet. Another thing that's kind of annoying here is the stage floor. I'm just going to turn that off so that I don't have that intersecting my viewpoint whenever I'm sketching. So yeah, let's sketch like a side view here of what this goofy car is going to look like. Again, be really loose with your lines, you know, just make quick lines here. And if you make a mistake, you just press the red back button or the delete and get rid of that. Okay, good. That gives me an idea of what the side view is going to be here. And now I can kind of come in here and draw this roll bar. So let's maybe bring that down here. All right. This thing is looking really goofy. That's okay. Okay, maybe we put a kind of like a protection bar here. So it's not like a full door, it's more like a half door. Just something to keep you a little bit safer in a crash.
Hey, Emil, we have another question when you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
The question is, how can we draw lines attached on an existing body or surface like a pattern?
Draw lines on an existing body or surface. Okay, yeah. So if you have like a surface like this, there is something that you can do on the, sorry, not on the ink tool, but on the stroke tool here. It's called projection mode. Let me make this a different color so that it stands out a little bit more. As soon as you turn on projection mode, you'll see that your stylus that's usually right here is replaced with this laser, and the stylus is kind of, you know, out there in space a little bit. As soon as you intersect that with an object and start sketching, you can actually sketch directly on that object. Kind of a caveat here is that if you were to shift the object, it comes off the surface. If you were to place this into edit mode and move the edit points, it comes off the surface. However, you can change this by turning snap to this center selection here. And now these lines or these edit points will snap to the surface, but they can also be pulled off the surface. So just keep that in mind, that it's not super useful in most cases, but in specific cases it can help you out. Also, I think I answered that question correctly, but if I haven't, just drop something in the chat or turn on your mic and give me a shout. Okay, let's add floorboards here. And okay, so this is like a very low fidelity example of what this card could look like. Maybe we give it a little license plate holder back here. Yeah, so what I want to show you is how quickly you can start ideating on this. So what we can do is grab this entire model here, hold it, press the blue menu button, or sorry, the purple menu button, and that will group everything. And now we can duplicate this out along a line here, and then grab this frame, hold the blue menu down completely, and this will allow me to place every single object here, all these individual sketch lines, into edit mode at the same time. You can kind of see that we have these edit points all over the place. And now with that, I can actually grab these points, I have snap-on still, start shifting them out and make quick adjustments on an initial loose sketch. So let's say I want to pitch the roof a little bit here. I can do that. I can grab these edit points and kind of shift them down. Or if I want to make the front or the side a little bit wider, I can pull that out. I can even add shape on like some of the doors, or I can kick out where the wheels will be here so that it has a little more of a base and it's less top heavy.
I guess it is the right moment to also show like soft select.
Yep. So this, I just wanted to show you the capability of it first, but Charmaine's right that this is not initially what this feature will do. So you need a second feature with this. So if I were to just take this, hold it, place it into edit mode, and everything's in edit mode, and I take my grab sphere here and I reach out and grab a chunk of edit points, everything would move with 100% influence. So you can kind of see that here. Everything that I grabbed and shifted over here, everything that I didn't grab is still in its original place. If you want to sculpt with these lines and kind of get this like really nice fall off and kind of like painterly effect, then you need to use an option called soft select. Now, the way that you do this is first you grab your lines, you place everything in edit mode. Then you take your grab sphere and you move it away into open space here so that it's not affecting any of these edit points. You just hold it in open space like this. Press up on the joystick to make it about double the size of your controller. Then you hold down the middle finger. You can kind of see I have it held down there. And while you're holding it down, you press down and up on the joystick here. And this gives you a sphere within a sphere. Now, this is kind of confusing at first, but once you try this feature out, it becomes pretty intuitive. Basically, this inner sphere here is at 100% influence, and the outer sphere is at 0%. And there's a gradation between the two spheres, obviously ticking down to 0 and up to 100. So what this does, and I'm going to demonstrate this here, hopefully in a pretty understandable way. Let's make a shape here. We're going to subdivide it. Okay. And let's duplicate this out a couple of times. So if I place this into edit mode and I just have a regular grab sphere, it's going to shift out like this. If I turn on soft select like this and I make the inner sphere really small, it's going to shift out like that. And then if I do the same thing, but the sphere is really large, it's not too far away from the outer sphere, do the same thing, it's going to look like this. So again, I'll just kind of like draw it out here. You have your outer sphere, that's at 0%. And then you have your inner sphere, and that's at 100% influence. And then there's a gradation between the two of them. It's really hard to kind of like explain this and like over a 2D demo, but if you guys give this a shot and try it out on some of your projects, you'll kind of see where it's useful. It's really useful for sketch lines like this, and just like you can duplicate out this single sketch that you made, 100 times if you want. And I remember previous students at DAP that did this all the time, Hunter being one of them. He would have a line of like 150 designs that he iterated on, and almost all of them were basically the initial sketch that he did, but small changes to it. So yeah, it's a really useful way of like saving time and iterating at a super fast pace.
Cool. I guess this is the last minute for any questions. Like if you have any question, do shout out. We could like demonstrate it real quickly, or else we'll be wrapping up this demo for now.
Okay, everyone. No, it seems that you have all answered all of our questions. So this is great. I think that the goal based on the demo is to really start collaborating in Gravity Sketch and validating as you showed us, because 2 weeks from now we'll have the ideation presentations. Those are more about pitching what the final design direction could be. So not necessarily building the final experience, but verifying the design. So this is really great, and we appreciate it.
No problem.
That's great. Emil, are you going to finish this, or we'll be wrapping up now?
Yeah, we can wrap up on this.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for having us. Like, we have a great time with you all. But like after this demo, if you have any questions, do let us know. We can always like schedule more demos or like bring you the right resources as long as you move forward in your projects. So we hope to see you soon next time. And thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.